about a world where the youth are motivated. I dream about a world where the youth are motivated. I dream about a world where the youth are motivated. I dream about a world where the youth are motivated. They wonder why I put the motivation in rhyme. In actuality, don't you think it's about that time to teach the youngsters really all about that grind?
True education. True education. What is true education? Right? I'm gonna go into a chapter in the book and just go through a quick little brief rundown about true education. Lots of people think that education is only achieved in a school or university. The word education means to provide with knowledge or training. This can be achieved by reading books or listening to individuals who are experienced in certain areas. I believe that we have something to learn from everyone. Don't get me wrong, I am an advocate of education in which everyone can attend an institution of higher learning at some point in their lifetime. The thing I am against is the idea that you need college or specialized training in order to excel in certain areas. Never limit yourself based on what the world says you are capable of doing. In other words, never determine one's worth or usefulness based on his or her label, college degree, job title, etc. Experience will always reign supreme over textbook education. Always allow your mind to open up. A person once said, your mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. There are lessons in life to learn every single day. Even if that lesson is what not to do, you can still learn from that lesson. Set a goal to learn something every day. You will notice a huge change in your overall outlook. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. The more things that you have knowledge of will allow you to have conversations or things to talk about with more people. This in return will give you more people to learn from. It is like a chain reaction. Pretty soon you find that you will match wit with virtually anyone who is not ignorant. We all know that ignorance is the lack of knowledge. We are all ignorant about something. The difference is that I consider an ignorant person someone who doesn't know anything because they think they already know everything. Always stay humble and listen to everything people have to say to you. Then you make the decision whether or not you agree with what they say. Always strive to educate yourself in whatever way possible. Please remember one of my personal quotes: ignorance is optional. And what does that mean? Ignorance is optional, meaning that we are all ignorant about something, but it is optional if we decide to stay in that zone or not. Like if I don't know something about whatever topic, whatever subject, it's my option if I want to go out and learn it or not. So the whole thing with true education, what we get when we start talking about true education is the fact that don't just think that, oh, I'm not educated. I don't want people to count themselves out of the race because they don't feel like, oh, well, I don't have a degree, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. When in all actuality, education is available in so many forms. Don't think just because it has to come via a book for it to be education, because that's not the truth. You're learning something. If you're learning something, then you are being educated. I hope that people say that this video series, A Dose of Motivation Life Training Workshop, is education. You're learning from a guy who went through a lot of ups and downs in life. You're learning from a guy who did write a book and got on the bestseller list and did all of these things. You're learning from someone who's done motivational speaking. You've learned from someone who is a certified life coach. You've learned all these things, and so that is indeed education. So remember, don't ever sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short for what you could become just because of like, oh, I feel this way, or I don't feel like I'm adequate because I don't have the proper education. Okay? So that's it. That's the word. I mean, you have the ability to educate yourself every day. You can choose to learn something every day. And here's the crazy part. Like, the teens of this generation, of this particular genre, you got it made because you have the internet working for you. You gotta understand, I'm not that old a guy, right? But when I was in, middle school and high school and whatever, there wasn't an internet or Google rather that we could just go to if I want to learn something. I can go type in. There used to be encyclopedias and you had the dictionary, you had the encyclopedia. And I have been told many days by parent, teachers, family members, and whatever, I didn't know something or I went to go ask someone a question, they had no problem directing me to go look in the dictionary or go look in the encyclopedia, right? And I know if there's parents and teachers out there watching, I know you gotta be giggling because you're thinking, yeah, I remember those days, right? But the truth about it is that you do have it made these days because you have the luxury of Google and the internet and Yahoo and Bing and all of these different search engines that are designed to look up different categories of topics and present all the information to you, and you just get a slew of information through the World Wide Web. So all that being said is just really to let you know and let you see that education is here and you can absorb it through many different forms. And through reading, through looking at articles, through watching documentaries, through hopefully watching, Success Build a Life training course by Marcus Parker, and through all of these different ways so that you can continue to educate yourself and continue to absorb educational messages, okay? So this generation has access to information that my generation never could have had access to at that time, like from high school, and we talked about that. But when you think about it, if you ever seen people will often look at like the extremely ridiculously wealthy people. I'm not talking about, people with just a little, that are doing well. I'm talking about like the insanely wealthy people and their children. People always look at their children, and sometimes they have a hard time because people look at their children and say, oh, you're just spoiled, you don't know anything, you don't have anything, you don't know anything about life or whatever, your parents spoiled you. Well, if you really look at it and think about it, that's the way a lot of the generations look at today's generation, because it's like there were people who wanted so badly to have access to the information that you have at your fingertip. You know what I mean? So in a lot of ways, the youth of today, the teens of this generation, are the spoiled wealthy kids, if you would, because you have access to stuff. You can learn stuff. You can know stuff all the time because it's right there. The World Wide Web. You have all the information on the world right there at your fingertips. And so you can do research and you can figure out things on your own. You can research and find information, phone numbers, information on different colleges, different universities, different professions, different things. You can research so much more. And so what you have to keep in mind is the generation before you, a lot of times, sometimes when they might seem like your teachers or your principals or even parents sometimes might look at you a little different or might look at you from a perspective of you not knowing how easy or how good rather you have it. Because remember this, by the time we would get in an encyclopedia, sometimes like the set of encyclopedias I remember we had in my house when I was younger, someone gave them to us. Like I had a neighbor one time, and the neighbor, there was an older couple and they passed, and after they passed, they had some encyclopedias, so they gave them to us, and we were so happy to have these encyclopedias. So I'll never forget, I got this encyclopedia, and it's funny because in the encyclopedia, a lot of the information would have changed, or, I remember, it had like the wrong number of planets in it because they hadn't discovered some or whatever, or information about animals and stuff like that. this information constantly changes. So that's why the World Wide Web is so powerful, because it's ever changing and you can stay abreast of the new changes and the new discoveries that people are finding about stuff, and not just gathering old information that was printed in a book, 10 years ago. Think about how much has changed in the world in the last 10, 15 years. You know what I mean? So we don't have to look at books. I believe these encyclopedias I had were like from the 60s or 70s, and so much about them, so much of the information that was printed on them had evolved and had changed, but I'm still looking at the old encyclopedia. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is appreciate the fact that you have the liberty and the privilege of the information that your predecessors, like myself, didn't have at our disposal. We didn't have the ability to look up all this information and get down to the nitty-gritty of all of this new stuff like you do. So education, true education, is what you make of it. Remember that ignorance is always optional. You can choose to be as wise, or as knowledgeable rather, as you would like to be, because the information is there for you to grab it. You just have to get it, grab it, and learn from it and apply it to your life. So remember, set goals, follow through, and always fill yourself up with information. Remember, ignorance is optional. And remember, don't take offense to that word. A lot of people, take offense to the word ignorance. And it's really not something to take offense to, because everyone is ignorant about something. You know what I mean? If you ask me a certain question about how to do this or how to do that, if I have no information, then I'm completely ignorant to that topic. You with me? When you say ignorant, it doesn't mean that you're ignorant like you don't know anything, but ignorance is only the lack of knowledge in a particular subject or a particular genre of information. So if you don't know something, then you're ignorant to that, but you don't have to be, because if I wanted to learn about underwater basket weaving or whatever, then all I have to do is look up a book on underwater basket weaving, or I could search the internet and find out information. So I could learn it and decide if that's something that I wanted to be, involved in. Now, let's take a quick review and let's go over some of the things that we've already basically learned. We want to know, first of all, remember, you can rise above your circumstances. Just because your circumstances might look bad, and just because things around you may be negative or may seem negative or it may seem hopeless, that doesn't mean that's the way it has to be. You can rise above those circumstances. Remember true education. Remember, just because it's not coming out of a book or because it's not set up in a classroom setting does not mean that you are not being educated. You can get education from any different source, even if that education is watching someone else's experience, and even if that education is learning what not to do in life, you're still being educated. Learn to battle negativity. Remember, we talked about negativity, and I want everyone to know that the negativity character was not about, trying to smash anyone or trying to, be like any particular person at all. The negativity character only represented that side of us that's always questioning and always trying to tell us what we can't do. It's always that person who's dictating like that fear or that doubt or that depression or that whatever that feeling is that makes us feel like we can't go forward and that we can't accomplish it. That's all negativity is, and that's all the character was representing. I wanted it to be something fun, something entertaining, so you'll always think about whenever you get a dose of negativity from whatever direction, you'll always think about that character and think about how you're not gonna let him actually take over and run your life, because you don't have to, okay? Think about setting your goals. Think about the fact that you have the ability to set goals. You have the ability to basically write down and tell yourself, this is where I want to see myself. This is where I'd like to see myself elevate to in life, and no one can stop you from those goals, right? Remember that after you set your goal, after you figure out what it is that you want to do, then the next step is follow through, right? Follow through is the hard part. That's the work. That's the part where I said that I want to do this. I said that this is what I want to accomplish. Now I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. I'm gonna get my to-do list. I'm gonna start writing down my goals. And now I have to continue and follow through. I'm gonna actually take those actions that are necessary for me to complete and for me to conquer this particular goal that I've set for myself, okay? Remember to always be yourself. Be yourself. We went through my own life story. Remember we talked about like all of the ups and downs, and it's like, remember, whenever you try to live in someone else's lane or someone else's story, then you can never be the best you could be whenever you're being someone else. So remember, success is something that you can accomplish, because you can be the best you that you can be if you only put all your energy towards being yourself. All right? So be yourself. Rise above your circumstances. Remember, try to educate yourself any way you can, as much and as often as you can. Remember, always stay humble along the way, and remember to look out for negativity, because it will come, whenever you start working down that path. Remember to use your talents. Remember that there's something that you're good at. It's just a matter of figuring out what exactly it is. It's also a matter of figuring out, how you can apply that and use it towards something positive. My name is Marcus Parker, aka M Positive, and you have successfully completed the A Dose of Motivation Life Training Workshop, the entire series. I truly hope that you enjoyed it. I truly hope that you learned something from it. I truly hope that you can take some of this positive information and use it, apply it to your life, and accomplish whatever it is that you would like to accomplish in life. And I just wish the best for you. I want you to remember, stay in your lane, look out for negativity, and I'm out.
I dream about a world where the youth are motivated. I dream about a world where the youth are motivated. I dream about a world where the youth are motivated. I dream about a world where the youth are motivated. They wonder why I put the motivation